Welcome to today's Quora episode from Asked and Answered. What's the most disgusting thing you've ever seen someone do at an all-you-can-eat buffet? Most would involve morbidly obese people eating obscene amounts of food. We were at a Chinese buffet one day, and when we were seated, the table next to us had two 300+ pounds women who had mastered the art of stacking food on the plate. I normally don't even pay attention to others, but their plates were amazing. These were standard 8-inch plates and the food was piled on about 3 inches high. Now, normally when I say 3 inches high, you're thinking of some sort of standard pile that is 3 inches in the middle and tapers down toward the edge, like a little hill of food. No. Their food was 3 inches high at the edge of the plate, and tapered in maybe a ½ inch at the top of the pile, which was flat. Our kids were toddlers at the time, so between us eating and feeding the kids we were probably there for 40 minutes. During that time, they cleaned off the plates that they had when we came in and had went back twice, getting the same amount of food each time. Between the carbs and grease there were easily 2,500 to 3,000 calories on each plate. But that wasn't as disgusting as it was impressive. Disgusting was an incident I saw at a little pizza buffet where I used to eat lunch now and again. They had the standard array of pizzas, and they also had dessert pizzas that had chocolate chips and sugar glaze drizzled over them. It was serious sugar overload, but they tasted good. I was there one day and an obese family came in, including a young boy who was probably 4 or 5 based on his height and the way he acted. He was morbidly obese. When they walked in, he went straight for the dessert pizza. When the mother said he should eat something else first, he started on a tantrum, so she quickly let him get that, but limited him to 4 of them, and told him he'd have to eat other pizza as well. Those 4 were probably 1,000 calories altogether. The family nearly cleaned the place out. All-you-can-eat buffets were my absolute favorite dinner outing when I was a child. I would pile my plate with fried crab rangoon, sugary rolls, and make frequent stops to sneak in a dessert each time I went back up. All the dinner rules went out the window when we got to the buffet. As I am digging into something most likely sugary, I hear a woman screaming across the table from my family. I looked over and her husband's face was bright red as he was squealing for air. He was choking. His wife was screaming for help and shouting for someone to call 911. The man's face was starting to take on a bluish color. Luckily there happened to be a nurse that was dining at the restaurant and quickly came over to assist. She swung her arms around his abdomen and performed the Heimlich maneuver. Within less than a minute, the man was able to cough up his food and was coming to. His wife was weeping in relief as her husband's face was regaining pigment. The restaurant patrons were clapping, celebrating the victory of each breath the man was able to take. The waitress also came over to check in as the nurse was asking the man some basic questions. The waitress sees that he was speaking and slipped the check on the table as she passed through. It was only a few minutes after the man regained consciousness, but the check made its way to the table almost immediately. My parents were appalled as we just had front row seats to a very traumatic scene of a man hanging on to his life. It was unbelievable that the staff was waiting for him to breathe so they could promptly deliver the check for their meals like it was the last box they needed to check for their service. Another scene followed from the patrons. Everybody was disgusted at how swiftly the waitress brought the bill after the man suffered a near-death experience. Needless to say, the bill ended up being comped by the restaurant. Edit: there is nothing in the above story that mentions that the man that choked should not have paid for his meal. What appalled the patrons of this restaurant was the blatant disregard and acknowledgement from the waitress that the event even happened and went on her business without even checking on the customer's well-being. I'm not going to continue answering questions implying that I thought the meal should be comped, because I never referenced that once. I stated the meal was comped by the staff due to the outrage from the restaurant on their poor service. I worked at Old Country Buffet for 2 years during my last year of high school and first year of college. Saw lots of very large people come through, people who sat on a chair and overflowed over the sides of the seat. Lots of families with kids who were messy eaters, but we had a regular customer who was probably in her 30s but looked older, was very thin, almost gaunt, but kind of pretty in a wayfish sort of way. Anyway, she came in at least once a week, sometimes more, and would make multiple trips to the buffet. Salad, soup, meat, mashed potatoes, etc., and then she would visit the restroom. I never personally witnessed the aftermath, but basically she was binging and purging. Story number 2, I was helping out boosing tables one evening and had a group of 4 young people, probably early 20s, who wouldn't let us take any of their dishes. So by the time they left, there were easily 20 or more plates on their table, plus silverware, cups, bowls, etc. When they left, they were laughing and said over their shoulders "have fun." And I just figured they were poking fun at how we had to work and clean up people's dirty plates, and they didn't, until I went to bus their table. They had shoved all the dishes to the inside, it was a booth, and as I started pulling stacks of dishes out, I noticed a giant puddle/pile of not so hot fudge. Yup, they spilled an entire cup of fudge on the table and didn't make any effort to clean it up, instead hiding it. And they didn't even leave us a tip.